Every weekday, we go over a handful of people's stories that I find on LinkedIn and Reddit and some other places. And a lot of times we'll see people maybe older in their careers, 40s, 50s, 60s, and their original feeling to this job market, especially after a couple of months, is sadness, is just being upset. People have broken down into tears after interviews and getting rejected. People just feel like no one's going to pick them and it just makes them discouraged. But then there's the other side of the table too. And I think it's also just as fair as feeling sad about the way things are. And that feeling is rage, especially for young people. I mean, we are at the point where young people are straight up crashing out because they're so fed up with all these games. I mean, people are applying for jobs that they feel like they could do, and they're just getting rejection letters. Especially our younger people, because they are told, hey, go to college and you'll be able to get a good job. Guaranteed. As long as you have some kind of degree, you'll be able to get a job. And then they go spend at least 4 years in college, and then they graduate, and then there's no jobs because all the jobs want you have experience. Well, you can't get experience because you're in school. So you're not getting opportunities. These companies aren't doing these big internship programs anymore. And even if they do internships, it doesn't mean that it's going to lead to full-time work. I mean, that's kind of the whole point. People are going on multiple rounds of interviews just to get ghosted. People are spending hours and hours of their day applying to jobs, making sure everything's perfect and careful, making sure they have the right resume, the cover letter, they're matching all the keywords, doing whatever they can to get past the applicant tracking system, and no dice. For many Americans, it feels like this job market is not fair. In fact, it feels quite rigged, right? It's like you're watching the NBA or whatever your favorite sport is, and it's like, well, this doesn't seem right. All this doesn't add up. Because you'll see these news reports of, and people will tell you, your friends, your older family members will tell you, people on YouTube will tell you everything's fine, unemployment rate's 4.2%. Hundreds of thousands of people are getting new jobs every single month. In my area, tons of people are hiring. You just have to go out there and look for it. Okay, great. Thanks, dude. Because that's not everyone's reality. And those stories of little areas, little pockets of the country where you can actually land a job without all these games, without all this nonsense, are very few and far between. Those are really hard to come by because for the average American, it's struggle. And that struggle and that defeat and all these games you have to play just leads to outright anger. And I don't blame someone for just going crazy, throwing their laptop across the room, throwing their cell phone. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So today we start with Vladimir, who says, after a few months of unemployment, doing the same process of search for a job, apply, get rejected, repeat, I finally crashed out when the company decided to ask for feedback. I'm sitting, just drinking my coffee in the morning and thinking, what is there to provide feedback on? Don't get me wrong. I know they want to improve the recruitment process, but if it starts completely wrong, you can't just duct tape it midway and call it better. It's the same process of AI reviewing your application for the slim chance of it being reviewed by a recruiter. Recruiters will then take your CV to look AI generated. Like, really? You're filtering for specific keywords. Of course they will all look similar. That's one of the issues with AI filtering. Furthermore, if you pick up on the keywords wanted, your CV and or cover letter can still be considered AI generated by the system. It's a completely ridiculous job market. And let's take a pause there. Have you gotten an email from a company that you applied to asking for feedback? Because I know I have. And I'm like, are you having a laugh? Like, why would I give you feedback? Usually they send it before you get that rejection email, but it's like, well, I haven't heard anything back. And if you did get the rejection email, well, it's like, I haven't talked to anyone. How are you going to get any positive reviews from this? How are you going to get any sort of good, like, focus group type data to use to improve your application process, your hiring process? You're not. Maybe if someone goes through the interview process and at least makes it to the final round, but nowadays with how many rounds of interviews there are, if you're going through 5, 6, 7 rounds of interviews, I don't think you're going to have good feedback. The only time you should ask someone for the feedback in the hiring process is maybe if you have a recruiter reach out to them, cool. Then you go to hiring manager, cool. And then maybe you have one more round where you have to talk to a couple of executives, and then that's it. Anything more than that, you're just going to get bad feedback. But to get but to send emails out to people asking for their feedback on the hiring process when they know it's this terrible and they're not hiring people, or at least they're not hiring the specific people they're emailing about this, is absolutely ridiculous. Vladimir continues and says, apologies for the sidetrack. As I was saying, they asked for feedback and I decided to reply with dissatisfied ratings and the comment of, at least provide candidates with feedback. What kind of company asks candidates for feedback when they are the ones hiring? At least make it look like you respect our time. Yes, another thing I find ridiculous is how companies now ask you for feedback and do not provide you with any. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be the other way around. When did the roles reverse? In conclusion to my little rant, the job market is pretty much rigged. Boycott applying in general and start chasing personal connections because you're more likely to get a job by making friends with a hiring manager than by applying for the job. P.S. This mostly applies for younger job seekers, as there are other barriers we face, like the lack of 3 years work experience for an entry-level job. And that's true. The nerve of these companies to ask you for feedback. When you ask them for feedback, they're like, oh, we can't give you any feedback. They send you a rejection email that is from a do not reply. There's no email address that you can email. There's no phone number that you can call someone. There's no number that's text or chat, or there's no way to get in contact with these guys and get feedback. And on the slim chance that you do contact a recruiter and your recruiter is able to put your information in, or a referral or something like that, well, they're not going to give you feedback either. So the amount of emails that at least I get of companies asking for feedback of their hiring process, only to not give me any feedback on how I could do better or things that I could tweak to stand out more and increase my chances of getting a brand new job. It is absolutely ridiculous. That's a great word for it. And some phrases and sayings are out of date. Like, you don't know why you say them. It's just part of our popular vernacular, like knock on wood or get down to brass tacks, things of that nature. But there's one phrase, especially when it pertains to the job market, that is absolutely true, that I wish wasn't, but it is absolutely true still in 2025. And it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think Vladimir is right. It's a better use of your time to just try to find a way to network and make connections with someone who's a hiring manager, who's an internal recruiter, because it's a complete waste of time to spend your time applying online for jobs when that's the only way you can actually apply. You can't really go in person. You can't go to job fairs because they're telling people to apply online. You can't just randomly try to connect with someone on LinkedIn because they'll just ghost you and not accept your connection requests. Or if they do, you send them a message, they won't answer that. So really, just go out and try to meet people. In my mind the other day, I was thinking, well, maybe you just go downtown during lunch, to a popular place where people go, maybe do a little research, a little detective work, and figure out where the biggest companies in your area, like those employees, if they don't just bring in their lunch or if they don't have like a cafeteria, where are they going? Are they going to the Panera? Are they going to Starbucks? What restaurant are they going to? And just try to network there. Like going to a bar and having a couple of drinks and maybe trying to pick up a partner or something like that. Instead, you just take that same budget and go and figure out what lunch spot people are going to and try to make connections there. And if you can make a good connection with them, oh, I went to the same college, I like the same sports team, make a friend. Just try to make a friend in person, maybe on their lunch break, and then maybe that new friend can lead you to a job, because all these other ways are not really working. You got to find some way to go face to face, eye to eye with an actual human who could land you a job, because just sending your resume out there seems to be a waste of time. Next, Zach says, there should be penalties for companies posting ghost positions. It is false advertising, and if someone really scrutinizes it, it feels like a form of worker intimidation, saying, look how many people want your job. Be grateful for what you have and don't seek more. I am frustrated with applying for specific positions that could literally change my living conditions, but then I waste my time and energy crafting applications only to see that they never intended to fill the role. It slowly breaks people's will down and makes me skeptical that any job I apply to is legitimate on this website. Yeah, it does feel like that. I mean, we've talked about in the past how a lot of companies will say that they're hiring. They will work with the HR department to come up with the perfect job description that fills all the needs and wants of the department, and they will maybe send it out to HR to go get it filled, or at least go post it on their website, or go post it on LinkedIn or something of that nature. And they don't just keep that information private. No, they will tell the other people, like a manager will tell their subordinates, especially after they do layoffs. Hey, don't worry. I know we had to lay off some people, but we're going to backfill those positions. We're actively looking to hire these people. We're actively looking to bring in some new people here. So don't worry. I know you have more work right now, but we're working on getting someone. And those are the roles that sit there month after month, up to sometimes a year. Sometimes they just say, oh, we have to cancel it. Maybe we didn't have the budget for it. So it's not just the people applying for these jobs who are being strung along, being led on. It's the people who actually work in these companies where there has been a layoff, there has been people fired. Maybe people have had enough and they have been able to find a new opportunity and they leave, and you're shorthanded that way. So whatever caused you to get shorthanded, the managers are going to tell you, don't worry, we're looking for somebody. And that makes you feel like, okay, cool, help is on the way. And then that help never comes. And then if you do have a job and you watch channels like this who are actually trying to talk about the falsehoods of the job number reports and the unemployment rate and all that stuff, you might say, oh, well, looks like it's really rough out there. I'm going to be grateful for my job. And yes, you should, but that doesn't mean you should stop applying, because unfortunately you could be next. So the key is to always be looking for a new job, whether you don't have a job or whether you do have a job, because you just never know. Yes, you should be grateful, and I do not think that you should quit a job. Please, please, please don't quit a job, even if you hate it, before you have a new job lined up. But that doesn't mean you can't be actively looking for a brand new job. Next, Rachel says, a few weeks ago, I filled out probably the longest application of my life. I had some back and forth with the hiring manager, who had reached out to me first for interest here on LinkedIn and then prompted me to fill it out. That application took me 4 to 5 hours, easily. It included multiple pages with scenario and strategy questions and more. I never heard back after that or got an interview with that company. A few weeks later, I saw that they reposted the same job but with a different name and changed up the job in general, adding things like certification requirements, etc. Let's pause there. Unfortunately, there's many reasons, nefarious reasons, why companies could be posting jobs. Number one is to keep the existing people in line, like, hey, no, help is on the way, like we just talked about. But number two, it could be to just store up data. Now, I don't think that they're going to eventually hire these people after a year, but I think it is storing up data to be like, hey, people are, when they were desperate and it was completely an employer's market, they were willing to take, 20, 30% less than the people I hired maybe 10 years ago or something of that nature. So they can see like a new ceiling on what they need to pay someone to land a new job, and like get feedback on like, all right, well, there's a lot of good candidates for this, or maybe not. They're building up some kind of case to be able to shortchange and lowball people in the future. And at this point in this person's post, I don't know how long they've been looking for, but you certainly get to a certain level where you're like, all right, at first, maybe for the first couple of weeks, I'll play some games, I'll jump through some hoops, but then you get to the point where like, I'm not going to do this. Because every single story we see of someone going the extra mile and doing all this other stuff, like multiple pages with scenario and strategy questions and working on applications for 4 to 5 hours. Previously, we looked at someone who spent 12 hours on basically an application process between doing questions and some presentations. They're 100% taking your work, taking your ideas and implementing it down the road. They're definitely getting free labor out of you. So yeah, why even have interns when you could have people who have been doing this for 10 years who know what they're talking about and just get absolutely free work from them? Then you don't have to spend any time trying to train or be nice or be friendly to an intern or like help them out and give them, recommendations or anything like that. You could just keep your hiring process going, keep having people do 4 to 5 hours of free work for you, free consultations from experienced people, and say, it didn't work out, or don't say anything at all, just ghost them. And then you got a lot of free work from an experienced professional that you don't have to pay. And then these companies either think that we're all stupid or they just really don't care. And I don't know which one is worse, because if you're applying for jobs, there's only so many jobs out there, especially in your region, that you're going to notice for that same position if that same position comes down the road again, because there's only so many things you could do. Like, oh, that company's posting again. Maybe they have a new opportunity. And then you read through it and it's like, that's exactly the same role that I just applied for, or it's just slightly different. Maybe they're using the feedback from the first round of posting it, getting hundreds of applications, getting some free work done. Like, all right, well, we got the free work we need done here. Now let's get some free work in this other area that's at least similar. So I don't know what I don't know even the complete number of games that they're playing, but they're doing a lot and it's not okay. Rachel continues and says, I'd like to say these types of companies are doing this type of application process in good faith to find quality candidates, but I'm not so sure anymore. I've found plenty of what looks like ghost job listings from companies because they have been hiring for the same job for over a year. For all I know, that company that I completed the application for had no intention of hiring and used some of my free advice via the job application. Or at best, this company didn't know what they wanted, wasting my time. Time that I could have spent with my family, or much needed time spent applying elsewhere where I'm likely to get a job offer. Job searchers beware of this type of stuff in these applications. If I see an application that's going to take me hours to do, I'm not doing it. Also, asking past salaries as a required field is not only annoying, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal. Hashtag job search. I agree with all of that, except for I probably don't agree that you're going to land a job, not in this job market. So if they don't waste your time in one way, they'll find another way to waste your time, right? But yes, it is good to, you give it a shot, you give the employers a benefit of doubts for maybe a couple of weeks, and you're like, all right, I'm not doing this. If it's not a straightforward application process, if I can't talk to a human within the first round, then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do a one-way interview and then do assessments and then do, matching shape games and then talk to a virtual recruiter and then maybe talk to an actual internal recruiter who may or may not even get me to the hiring manager. I mean, there's so many levels. There's so many additional barriers nowadays to trying to even talk to a person for a job. And I don't know whether it's illegal or not to ask someone for their previous salary. All I've ever heard is that a company, when they're doing their background check and calling your previous employers, I don't think they're allowed to ask what you made. I think they're only allowed to ask what your job title was, which is very vague. I mean, I think you can get away with that because these companies are all thinking about themselves and like, oh, we'll call you this or that. That means nothing to another company. So that you can always get around and then verify the dates that you worked there. So, hey, did this person work here? Yes, they did. Okay, what was their job title? Okay, cool. And like, what was the length of their tenure here? All right, great. I don't think they're allowed to ask what your salary was. Not that they won't, but I don't think they're allowed to. And I don't know if that's by state, but that's what I always heard. Let me know. So people are being intimidated into not leaving their jobs. They're being fed false promises. They are being strung along with hours and hours of interview processes and basically getting free work taken from them. They're being told that, hey, even though you have a bachelor's degree, you still need multiple years of experience, which I don't know how you're gonna get. That's not my problem, that's your problem. And that's leading to people feeling like this complete job application process and this complete hiring process is absolutely rigged, and they're getting upset, they're getting sad, and some people are crashing out, getting really, really angry about the way the job search process is in 2025. But let me know your thoughts on these stories down in the comments below. Talk to you later.